Well, good morning. I'm going to read to you from A Night Divided, chapter 30 is what we are on. If you remember, when we left off at the end of chapter 29, Officer Mueller had returned. And he said, "Oh, so the Lowe children are doing something far more than gardening." And so chapter 30, it starts with, "Caught together, hanged together," German proverb. It felt like hours before any of us spoke. Mueller took his time investigating the tunnel, running his hand along the sides and poking at the ceiling to check how solid it was above us. Part of me hoped the ceiling would collapse directly above him, but of course that meant we'd be trapped too, and the death strip would cave in on all of us. Not much of a solution. "You've gone a long while," Mueller then said, "further than I expected." "You knew we were tunneling?" Fritz asked. "How?" "I knew there was a reason your sister didn't want me getting close to this building, but I didn't really suspect and get suspicious until I looked inside the basement yesterday. I saw the pulley and the bucket, and I asked myself, so much dirt might be in a building like that that is supposed to be closed up. I could have kicked myself, or preferably kicked him. I knew he'd gotten close to the window, but never thought he'd see so much. In hindsight, that was plain stupidity on my part, my childish optimism in the face of reality. Mueller ordered us out of the tunnel, but told us not to climb the ladder up to the surface. Fritz dropped the shovel handle, then walked first with his hands held high, and I followed. Mueller went last, keeping the gun trained on this. If he shot, I hoped he would get me first. Maybe that was selfish, but I didn't want to go through watching it happened to Fritz, knowing I was next. Once we were in the shelter, Mueller ordered us to sit in a small bench. He stood beside the ladder, and here, under a little more light, I saw the gun all too well. "No trial is required before I shoot you," he said. "You are clearly guilty of attempting to leave the country." Yes, we were. Not even the best told lie could get us out of this one. "I was first alerted to you by a woman who lives in your building, Frau Herberhart. Do you know her?" Of course, that silly old woman again. I knew her and suddenly loathed her just as much as I did Officer Mueller. Maybe that was unfair. The Stasi would give her much needed reward in exchange for information, and after all, she was on the right side of the law, not us. But still, she had betrayed us, and nothing was so low as that. "Frau Herberhart says she first noticed your odd behavior in the week before school got out. Is that how long you've been tunneling?" "Yes, sir." There was no point in denying that. "And how long until you expect to cross into the West?" "There's no way to know," Fritz said. "We're not sure how much further we have to go, or what condition we might encounter along the way." "You're not the first to attempt an escape through tunnels," Mueller then said. "Why did you think you would succeed when nearly all suspects have already failed?" "We didn't know if we'd get across," he said. "We only knew that we wanted to try." "Ah, but now, with 2 shots of my gun, you will be nothing but failed escapees. Your bodies will be buried in shame, your mother will be arrested and likely jailed, and your family will be published in every newspaper and throughout all history as traitors and cowards." "Or neither, sir." Fritz held his head up, clearly determined that if Mueller was going to shoot us, it wouldn't be with us acting ashamed for what we had done. "Our country is Germany, one country that should be united. We don't belong to Moscow or to the West. We belong to ourselves, and I have never betrayed that. This tunnel has taken every ounce of courage we have. We are not cowards." That seemed to entertain Mueller. "And so, how would you have yourselves described? As heroes? Are you role models to other young people who have lived behind the wall?" "We're a brother and a sister who only want a chance for a better life," Fritz then said. "And to bring your family back together," I added. "Please let us go. Forget you've seen us here. I am a uniformed officer of the state, and could not no sooner forget that tunnel than forget my own name." His attention wandered upstairs as a gust of wind blew through the boards in the basement. It provided much of the distraction that I wondered if Fritz and I could rush at him and overcome him, and then, well, I didn't know what. We weren't murderers, and we couldn't hold him here, and didn't even have enough money to offer him a respectable bribe. But we did have a tunnel. Mueller wore a golden wedding band on his left hand. He had a wife. On his left shoulder there was a little bit of milk stain, from a burping baby perhaps. He looked down into the tunnel again. "Who else is coming here with you?" No one, I said. Half of East Germany could be lined up to come with us, and I'd still deny it. I wouldn't rat them out the way Frau Herberhard had done us. What if others wanted to come? Besides me, Fritz looked confused, perhaps wondering if that was a trap to get us to reveal their names, but I didn't think so. They'd be welcome, I said. You could. No, I couldn't. But from the tone of his voice, I knew Mueller has already thought about it. Maybe even before he came here. That's why he'd come alone. His eyes flicked back to the tunnel, then over to me. I'll go up the ladder first. You will follow next, and then your brother. If you try any tricks, I will bury you here. He turned to leave, but I darted forward to grab his arm, not to fight, but only to stop him from leaving. He reacted by shoving me to the ground and aiming his gun directly at me. I raised my hands in the air and I closed my eyes tight, waiting for him to squeeze the trigger. Would you die for this tunnel? He yelled. Risk your lives, your family, for the run to the west? Don't shoot her, Fritz answered. This is my idea, not hers. I opened my eyes again to protest, but still felt paralyzed by the sight of his gun. At least he didn't fire it yet. With a trembling voice, I said, Bring your family and come with us. Bring them to the west. Mueller's eyes widened. Escape? How dare you suggest? There is more for your family in the west. It's the life you would want for them, if you could choose. Fritz caught on to my idea. You don't have to dig, but you might be able to help keep other officers away from this area. Then, when we're ready to leave, we can put out a signal, letting you know that the tunnel is completed. Mueller was convinced, but at least he was thinking. My wife wants to go to America. She has family there. We need another couple of weeks, Fritz said. Maybe more if we run into problems. But I can promise with all my honor to give you the chance to come. For the first time, Mueller then lowered his gun. What's the signal then? I spoke up. We'll leave a shovel in the dirt outside. A sign that we no longer need it. A long silence then followed. Mueller spent most of it staring into the tunnel, and I wondered if he was picturing himself and his family running to freedom. I did it myself plenty of times. Finally, he said, I will write in my report that I investigated and saw nothing suspicious, but I may return tomorrow to arrest you. I tried to cast Fritz's eyes to see what we should do. Mueller's terms were terrible. At best, he would do nothing to help, and at worst, he would kill us. What other choice did we have, though? We had nothing else to bargain with. Fritz reached out a hand to shake Mueller's, irritating me even more. He thanked Mueller. He actually thanked him for agreeing not to kill us. Yet. Mueller turned to leave, and then he said, Whatever I decide, you must hurry. With or without my help, this tunnel will be discovered soon. If I come with my group who discovers you, I will shoot just as quickly as the others. So do not look for me for sympathy in that moment. All I can do is warn you now. Your biggest enemy is time. I wasn't sure about that. Right now, Mueller seemed like a pretty big enemy to me. Fritz only nodded, and he then said, We're going to escape, and your family is welcome when we do. Watch for the shovel outside. We'll cross that same night. What will happen? The suspense is building. Keep listening every day so you can figure out what's going on with this book, and on Fridays we're going to do a quick check-in. Thanks.